Welcome to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 13. Editing is where movies are made or broken. Many a film has been saved and many a film has been ruined in the editing room. Joe Dante.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. So before we get started, head on over to filmfestivaltips.com. That's filmfestivaltips.com, where you can download my 6 secrets to getting into film festivals for cheap or free. I've gotten into over 500 international film festivals with these techniques. So head on over when you get a chance or after the show. Now, today we have a special guest on. We have Paddy Bird, the founder of InsideTheEdit.com. I found Paddy, trolling around the internet, and I came across this website called Inside the Edit, and I was fascinated with not only the design of the website, but what he was selling. He was selling a course on the actual concepts of how to become a creative editor. So I've never seen anything like that. There's a lot of editing courses out there about Premiere or Final Cut or how to do cutting this, but no one actually taught the emotion, pacing, how to construct a story, how to manipulate time, any of that stuff. And if anyone had done it, no one had done it very well. So I started looking into what he was doing, and after I saw a few videos, I was like, oh my God, this guy is crazy. I can't believe he's done this. This is amazing work. And then I got on the phone with Paddy, and he's based in England. It's a UK-based company. Paddy's been editing for, over 20 years, and he's done just tons of different documentaries, feature. I'm not sure if he's done feature work, but he's done a lot of network work, documentaries, reality shows, and American television as well as British television. And he woke up one day and decided to just, put this whole thing together. And the thing is like 60 tutorials long. Like he spent 3 years putting this together and growing. Every week he still puts some new tutorials out. Some tutorials are as small as 5 minutes, some are as long as 2 hours. It's absolutely nuts, or mental, as he says. So this is essentially a big master's class on editing. You got 2 editors just kind of going back and forth, and it was a lot of fun. And at the end of the episode, I have a special discount code if you want to get inside the edit. So stay tuned till the end, all right? So sit back and enjoy this masterclass in editing. Paddy, thank you so much for joining the show. We really appreciate it, sir.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And as you and I are both some, as they say, old dogs in the editing game. We've been doing this for many years, but a lot of my listeners are new to what editing is. And I think a lot of people who've been doing it for 20 years don't know the answer to this question I'm going to ask you. But what is the job of an editor?
That's a good question. As you say, it is difficult to define because editing really is the most unknown or nebulous kind of art form within the moving image medium. It's the one art form that no one really knows much about. You know what a director does, what a cinematographer does, sound person does, an actor does, blah, 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 blah. But the editing, it's very few people are privileged to go into an edit suite and actually watch what an editor does. So that's why it's known as a kind of black art, really. Mm-hmm. It is, every single genre is cut differently. Every single genre, documentary is very, very much different to drama, which is different to commercials, which is different to music videos, stuff like that. So each one of these genres has their own very, very specific set of rules and regulations and stuff like that. Where I come from is long form documentary. I think the best probably description is taking maybe the two most well thought of genres, which is drama and documentary. A lot of drama is pre-thought out. There's a script and stuff like that. So it's about taking, looking for the best performance, sometimes restructuring the script. It's also about, recreating the pace within the dialogue, to make it more dramatic or more emphasis on a certain specific thing which the director wants to do, which didn't come out in the actual performances from the actors. And documentary is very much different. It's about shooting a load of stuff and then finding the story there within that stuff, within that footage, within that raw material. You're bringing something out that's that you're actually finding along the way. And there's a classic saying in editing, you give 10 editors the same footage, you'll get 10 completely different films. But I think one of the most primary things that editors, the main job that an editor does is to be the first audience. And that really is a privilege. You're seeing something grow. You're taking the director's vision, all the performances, whether it's a documentary-based character or an actor, and you're seeing them for the first time, and you're making sense, and you're filtering through and seeing what's working and what doesn't work, and slowly piecing it together in this kind of very intricate jigsaw puzzle. And it ends up being very loose at the start, and then you tighten it in certain places, and it's like going through. I always say it's like going through in waves. Each scene is very, very much an isolated unit, but it's also part of an act, and it's also that act is also a part of the structure of the film, whether it's a documentary or an entertainment show or a drama. It doesn't really matter. So I'd say it's primarily the abilities you have to have. You have to watch the same thing over and over again. If you're not prepared to do that, editing's not for you. You have to have this kind of meticulous sense of detail and nuance, and don't mind watching things hundreds of times over and over again, which does drive a lot of people. Thousands. Does drive a lot of people away from the craft. But we are the first audience. We're there to react in an impartial way. The director. I've had so many directors. I know. I'm sure you have as well. Mm-hmm. Directors come in. They've gone through this long and arduous process of pre-production, production, which is highly stressful. There's lots of unforeseen, unknown elements that happen. And when they come and walk into the edit suite, they're usually, they might be tired, extremely tired. They might be very stressed, and, they want to know that they're going to get the best out of the material. So our job is to kind of create a kind of nurturing environment and say, okay, let's go through this and give you their feedback in a kind of interesting and informative way, and just say, we could go in this direction, or this is what this is saying to me. You're there to give a first impression about this, because the director can go off and get really obsessed about a certain set of performances, or we've got to get that great big crane shot in that costs 20 grand.
Right.
But then you come in and you say, well, actually, it doesn't make any sense to the story, so we shouldn't put it on, even though I know that you're emotionally tied to it because you had to stay up till 4 a.m. to get it. And you're like, I've got to put that in no matter what. So,
that's one thing I've noticed, that I'm a director and I've edited pretty much everything I've ever directed. Occasionally I've worked with editors as a director, and I have to say I actually enjoy working with an editor rather than me editing my own stuff as I've gotten older, purely because of that reason. Like, I'll sit there and go, oh, it took us 6 hours to get that shot. It has to get in the movie. Yeah. And if I'm editing, it's going to get in the movie, and it might not be right for the story. And a lot of directors don't get that. And I know with the rise of Final Cut and laptop editing and all this kind of stuff, that everyone's like, oh, I'll just be my own editor. I'm like, sometimes it's really helpful having another set of eyes in the room.
Absolutely. There's that layer of impartiality where we weren't there at all the performances. We weren't there in all the meetings with the producers that went on for months and months and months. We are looking at this cleanly as a narrative observer, as an observer of someone who is helping the director construct the narrative. And that kind of, impartiality is priceless. That's one of the major things, apart from the skills of construction and stuff like that, and pace and timing and stylization. That's one of the major reasons we're there to give our feedback. So it's really, really important. And I think, yes, in today's world, because of, with the rise of the final cuts and the premieres and stuff like that they kind of cost next to nothing, and people think, oh, I can just cut, I can just do it. But it's an art form. It's not just putting shots down on the timeline. There's a whole load of sense, laws, logic, and feel that goes with it, whatever you're cutting, whatever style, which it doesn't come to someone overnight just because they bought some software.
Right. And literally sometimes a frame means everything. And that's what people don't get. Like cutting a frame here, trimming a frame there, the timing, the pacing, the emotion of a scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
That frame means so much. And after years and years, you realize that. But a lot of people don't get that yet. And I think you're right. The craft, the black arts. I like when you say black arts. I think I'm in a Harry Potter movie. So it's very nice.
Oh, can I tell a really bad editing joke then, based
Please,
on what
please.
just? What's the difference between comedy and tragedy?
What?
6 frames. It's a terrible old editing joke that I remember hearing back in the 90s. Some old editor told me. I was like, oh, okay. I get that.
I'll tell you.
Sorry, am I supposed to laugh now? Yeah, okay, that's great. That's funny. But it is. It's like every single frame matters. I remember watching the making of Jaws,
Uh-huh.
and Steven
God.
Spielberg was talking about, because famously the shark was like looked
Didn't
terribly
work, yeah.
fake and stuff like that. And he said, we stuck the shark in for, I can't remember what the exact numbers were, but it was something like 70 frames. But if we cut it down to, if we added more than 70 frames or 60 frames, the shark looked fake. But there seemed to be a magic number in every single time you saw the shark. It had to be a specific number of frames because the model was so bad that if it went over that, people would just laugh at it and go, that's a big plastic toy that's not scary.
Right, exactly. So, in your opinion, I think you might have answered this, but I don't know, maybe you haven't. What makes a good editor? Like a really good editor?
God, that's very difficult to answer. I think it's a combination of talents. I mean, obviously you have to get on with never mind the skills. You have to, if you're
You have to be political. Yeah.
You have to be political. You have to be the ultimate. I mean, if all the editors were suddenly fired tomorrow, I think we'd all go and work in the UN because we'd be so diplomatic. We'd be brilliant ambassadors, I think, because we just, we get what we want without offending anybody, which is it's a difficult skill to learn. And obviously that's, we work in a collaborative industry. There's lots and lots of, whether it's camera operators working with directors or whatever, we're all working with people. So it's, you got to learn to get on. But that's the basic one, because there are, I have met editors who, the shout and scream and da-da-da-da, and you're like, no, you're not going to go too far with that kind of attitude. But in terms of the kind of craft, I'd say, the ability to watch something over and over again. I always think that, people always say to me, how can I learn the craft of editing, da-da-da-da? And I'm like, well, I mean, editing really is getting yourself in the mood of a film, of a scene, of a character. So one of the best ways you can do that is watch as many films as you can. And I'm not just talking about your favorite films, because editing really is a big, I always see it as a big stylization database in your head. Whenever I'm confronted by a scene and I go, that might be nice. I could nick something from that film I saw, or that film. That's a really good way to start. I mean, obviously, when you're cutting a scene, it may not go that way, but it's a good way to go from a start. I always find that if you have that big kind of creative directory of things that you've got in your mind, you can apply that pretty quickly to any type of scene, whether it's a fast-paced reality TV scene or a medium-paced, action scene and a drama or whatever you're cutting. So it's important to have, know your craft, know what all the other amazing editors are out there doing and what they have done. And I think being very logical, aware of logic and aware of structure, especially with documentary editing, drama as well. But a lot of the thinking on the structure has been pre-thought out. I mean, a lot of drama is pre-thought out beforehand by dozens of people. That it's writers, storyboard artists, stuff like that. I mean, it can all famously change in the edit suite, but there's been a lot of thought put out into it. And you do often have a lot of restructuring in the edit. I know lots of friends of mine who are big feature film editors, and they tell me like quite a lot as, on certain films, as obviously I can't say which ones, but a lot of them they get switched around. Large tracks of dialogue get cut out because they don't make sense. So you have to be the ability to watch a scene in isolation, but also that scene as part of a larger arc in the movie, but then the whole arc of the movie, or the documentary, whatever you're doing. So it's working from micro to macro as well. But then also understanding good pace and timing and the velocity of movement and pace within a film. That doesn't come easy. Well, they say one of the hardest and the last things to come for an editor is pace and timing, if at all. There's so many editors out there who don't actually make that final step, and that separates someone from a good editor to a truly fantastic one. And editing is like a roller coaster. It's like you go up and you're down, and here we got to go slow, and this is where we need the audience to feel this thing here. We're constantly asking ourselves, what do the audience have to feel here? What do I want them to feel and to know? Emotionally, logically, stuff like that. So there's lots of different factors we have to take into consideration. Some of them are more important in certain scenes than others, and it's about being flexible and knowing when to apply these rules and when to leave them, but then when to throw all the rules out the window and go. It's like the old Picasso quote. Learn all the rules like a pro, so you can
break them
like an artist.
It's a great quote.
Yeah.
So when you start editing, do you stick to the script or the storyboard, or do you start interpreting it right away?
I mean, I don't tend to do a lot of drama. I've done a lot of docudrama, which is, as you know, combining documentary with drama. So I don't tend to do that. I must confess, and I probably shouldn't confess this in case there are any of my previous or future employees out there, employers out there, but I never listen to any of the notes or anything like that. I just watch things through for performance and stuff like that. That's all I do. Yeah. I need to have that reaction. I know so many editors who go there, especially with drama, and they watch, takes 1 to 10 of an actor's performance, and they go, don't believe it, don't believe it, don't believe it, believe it, take 1, take 2, take 3. So then, you just dismiss a good percentage of things that aren't excellent immediately. So you're whittling it down. But I need to see it without any kind of people's opinions to give my own true opinion.
Right. Yeah, and I feel the same way. I think as far as performances are concerned, I think anytime an actor is winning an Oscar, they really need to thank the editor as well, because they did give the performance, but that editor went through all of those takes to craft that performance that made it. So I think they're definitely one of the big parts of that team, as well as obviously the director and the writer and everything. But at the end of the day, it's the editor who puts that together, and a lot of times finds a performance that might have not been there. Sometimes I've seen performances in the edit room that are horrendous prior to the editor kind of going in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know one movie specifically, the Green Mile. Michael Clark Duncan, when he was, he's famously, they gave him every acting coach in Hollywood because he was, he was a bodyguard. He was an Armageddon. He's not, as you call, the greatest, actor in the world. But between all the coaching, Tom Hanks and the editor, who I slips my mind who the editor was on that, crafted together an Oscar-nominated performance specifically for that.
Amazing.
So it's pretty crazy. So are there rules for editing certain types of scenes, like comedy, dialogue, action, that you like to follow or like to break? And do you have any examples?
I mean, I think in terms of the rules for, each genre has their own rules. Really, it's hard to sort of sit and break them all down. And
Sure.
But once you've watched Woody Allen films 200-300 times each, I think I've watched my favorite movies over 200-300 times.
Because you just analyze them, right? You're just analyzing.
You just analyze them. The first 5 or 6 times, 10 times you watch a movie, you're still engrossed in the narrative. You're still, oh yeah, that's funny, or oh, that's tragic, or wow, that's a great action scene. But then after the sort of 10th, 20th time, you're sitting there and you start analyzing, and you're going, okay, this is what they're trying to do here. You memorize every shot, every camera movement. This is how I learned editing, anyways, and looking at the pacing. And I always ask myself, okay, that's the edit. What? Not wow, that's amazing editing. what ended up on the cutting room floor, what didn't work. I always kind of I tried to look at it through the looking glass, like, you know, black is white and white is black. What didn't work there, and how was that constructed? You know, when you're talking about, you know, they say, you know, comedy's in the timing, but it's not just comedy. Tragedy's in the timing. Action's in the timing.
Ooh,
Everything's in the timing with editing. So we got to be very careful about what we're saying and what we're trying to make the audience feel at every single specific moment. With stuff like action, a lot of action stuff is driven by music. So music has got its own set of unique emotional implications. So a lot of times we're cutting to music, we're looking at the beats in the music, we're looking at the structure of what's going on in the music, what instruments are going on at certain points and stuff like that, whether it's been scored, whether we're buying a commercial track, all these kind of things. So, you know, I think I always thought the best way, well, certainly the way I did to learn is to look at the performance, look at the coverage, find a kind of scene that from your memory that works or would work in this, and then try and start, because it will never be the same, start a construction, a pace and timing construction around that. But yeah, it's like, and then you suddenly end up pulling out a couple of frames here between lines, a couple of frames there, or between action if you want to go really, really brutal in a specific action, in an action scene. You know, probably the most, still for me, even after 10 years, the most amazing action editing in recent memory was Bourne Ultimatum.
Oh,
I think he got the Oscar for that, didn't he?
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all crossing the line, cut frames.
He didn't care.
He didn't care. I remember watching that, and I was doing a science documentary for,
which became all of a sudden very much more exciting when you finished cutting it.
I think it's for Discovery Channel or National Geographic or somewhere, some broadcaster in the US. And I went in early. I watched it on the Saturday afternoon when it came out, and then I was like, oh my God. I ended up watching it 3 times over the weekend. And I came in about 7:00 in the morning to the edit suite. And I was like, bam, 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 started chopping around all these new scenes. And then the director came in at like 10 with his latte. I said, watch this. And his sort of jaw was on the floor. And I said, and he just turned around and said, what were you watching over the weekend? It's like, this is it, man. He showed us the way. This is genius editing. This is where we got to go.
How did it turn out?
It stayed in, actually.
Wow, like, good for you.
You see a kind of, you know, when you see a really amazing piece of editing, you know, unfortunately in television, we don't get the chance to do that kind of stuff very often. In drama and commercials, feature films, you've got a lot more leeway to be more creative in certain circumstances. But in television, there's a kind of pulling back, not all the way, but there's a kind of pulling back in kind of what you can get away with. Yeah, I mean, the title sequence in what's the Brazilian movie set in the favelas?
City of God.
City of God, what an amazing film! But the chicken chasing, I remember seeing that that is just astonishing editing, and a little action sequence of it of the guys trying to chase this chicken around, and it's all mixed with, you know, cut against Brazilian music, and that is, you know, it's a couple of guys chasing a chicken around a favela, but what he did, the editor did there, was just exceptional.
Now, let me ask you a question. What was the first time you, as an editor, I always like asking editors this, what was the first time that you discovered the craft of editing? Like, that it dawned on you early, like when you were a kid or when you're in high school or whenever it was, the moment you said, oh, there is a craft called editing and this is how they do it. Oh.
Wow,
It's going back. You're going back.
I'm going back, yeah, going back through all the years. I mean, when I was younger, we got our first VHS player. I think I must have been about 10.
Yeah.
Back in whenever it was, the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember watching films 70, 80 times. And my parents thought I was nuts.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And I would learn everything. And I was only about 8 or 9. I remember thinking, how's that? I remember thinking, what's on the end of that shot? Did they shoot that and it stopped there and things like that? And then,
So you were thinking about this already?
I was thinking about that at a very young age.
Interesting.
And then I started working on one of the sort of very early Avids in the mid 90s. I was about 20. And I think I was doing a charity video or something like that. And the person who was presenting it was just, they were really bad. They couldn't even string a sentence together. They were so nervous. Poor guy was so nervous. And I remember just sort of playing around and cutting everything out and then obviously there's loads of jump cuts in there and hiding certain jump cuts and then cutting to this there and thinking, wow, look at the power of this. I've made this person seamless, absolutely seamless. And then I started practicing and cutting other things, like just cutting interviews with people and making them say sort of crazy and outrageous things that they didn't say just by what we call, I don't know if you call it the same in the US, but in England, we call it frame bashing.
Okay.
Which is, just stealing words and putting them next to other words and cutting out knots and cutting out buts and becauses and, so that people end up just really, because that's what editing is, really. It's a bunch of words and you can take those words and do whatever you want with them. As long as you've got the coverage to hide those cuts, you can get away with pretty much anything. Obviously, the ethics around that are.
Exactly.
But I remember then very early on in my late teens, that's when I really dawned on me. This is unbelievably powerful.
Big time.
So, I was fascinated. I was hooked from the word go.
The one for me, it was, you remember Robert Downey as Chaplin?
Oh yeah, I actually watched that again the other day.
Then you'll know the scene much clearer than I did. I haven't seen this in years, but when Robert Downey or Charlie Chaplin shows up to Hollywood for the first time, and he gets caught up in the middle of that little scene with the cops and everything, and Dan Aykroyd brings him into the editing room, and he shows him editing. There, he cuts the film. He goes, "You don't want to be on the cutting room floor. That's that place you don't want to be." That was the first time for me that I saw editing. I'm like, oh, that's a job. I was a teenager when I saw that movie as well, working at my video store in Florida, and it was kind of mind-boggling to me. And I didn't fall in. I fell into, like I told you originally when we first spoke. I fell into editing because I didn't want to be a PA. So it's like, oh, there's an Avid in that room and it's air conditioned. Let me go learn that.
And they bring you free briskets.
Exactly, and then the lattes came after. So
things just got better.
Exactly. So this is a problem I know a lot of editors face, and I think it's a real important question to ask. When other people come in the editing room, other than the director, like an actor or a writer or even a producer, how do you handle their opinions politically versus the director? And then you obviously need to find out who your master is at that point. Is it the director or is it the producer? And this is a part of the editing process that editors don't know, because this is politics. And then you just have to figure out what to do. So I'm usually Switzerland. As the way I handle it, I'm Switzerland. I just whatever they tell me, I kind of just move. And someone asks my opinion, but I don't take sides because it could hurt you, obviously. You don't want to piss off the producer, but you don't want to piss off the director and who's going to give you your next job and so on and so forth. So how do you handle it?
I think that what's important is you have to take every single, instance completely, every single one is unique. I look at if you've been locked in a room with the director for a couple of months, you're going to get to know who they are and, how they handle pressure and stuff like that, and whether they're, in arguments with the producer, and, these type of things happen all the time. Whether they promised you another job and it's a big one they're going on to next.
Always. That's why they're not paying you that much this time.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, don't worry. Next time it's going to be
much more.
We're going to double your rate. Yeah, I've heard that one.
Have you ever heard, you have all the time in the world and we're going to double your rate? Have you ever heard those words uttered out of a producer's mouth?
Never.
Never will.
Never will. Yeah, take your time. Don't worry.
Don't
Just
worry.
come back when it's ready. When it's ready.
Can you
What?
imagine? Can you imagine?
I don't know. I think I'd faint on the spot if I heard that. No, I mean it's incredibly difficult. I mean, it depends on if there's arguments brewing, if there's what the temperament of everyone involved. That's that thing is who is your master. I remember a friend of mine who cuts just commercials, and he said it's really difficult because in commercials when you in the edit suite there's like 25 people in the and you've got this person and that person, and all of them don't know anything about making films. They're from branding and they're from this. And he says the main key thing in cutting commercials is finding out actually who's in charge and whose opinion counts, because there's only one of those people in the room. The other 19 can just leave, but they're there to justify their job and stuff like that. So it's very, very difficult. But yeah, I try and be as diplomatic as possible. And I always give my opinion. I truly believe that I'm paid to give an honest opinion. Sometimes those opinions are, sometimes you're in a position where if you give an honest opinion about why this scene didn't work, and that the reason it happened is because the director messed up, but you don't want to get the director into trouble. Yeah. You're going to have to make a call on that because, the director's sitting there looking at you going,
don't do it.
Don't do me over, man. I've got work in this town. Yeah. So yeah, there's a very, each one is very, very different. And I mean, I'm like you, and I think most editors are. I'm Switzerland. I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm here to cut this film. And my only responsibility really is to make it as good as it can be. But the politics are, I mean, that's actually one of the reasons I became an editor in the first place, is I love the fact there was no politics involved.
Little did you know.
Yes, little did I know. I thought there's less how much politics can there be in a dark room? But then I found out there was tons.
And now the craziest story I've heard, I was cutting a commercial and I had two advertising execs fist fight in my room. MMA style. I was in Miami. Wow. I was editing a commercial for a chicken joint, right. A local chicken joint. And the funny thing was that the client had just fired the agency that was editing in the spot that they just produced. So the client, through his wisdom, fired them before the commercial was over. And then I think the new guy came in to kind of oversee what they had just finished. And
end up turning on each other.
They just, literally, I had to break up a fight in my edit suite. I've never forgotten that. I was like, oh, you guys, wow. It's a chicken commercial.
I've never heard of that. I mean, I've heard some pretty crazy stories, but I've never heard of
a fist fight.
Yeah, no, that's wow.
Well, we're Latino. We're Latino down in Miami. Things. It's the heat. It's the heat. It's the heat. It's the heat. It's what it is. It's the heat. But yeah, us Latinos, we do have a little bit of a spicy edge to us sometimes, and add in a chicken joint, and things just go awry. So what? Now I know this happens to a lot of editors as well. What do you do about editor's block? Like, do you ever get editor's block? Have you ever had editor's block when you can't cut a scene to make you happy? Like, what do you do? Has it ever even happened to you?
It doesn't tend to happen to me, no. Sometimes I'll see something that I'll be like, okay, this is as far as it can go now. I'm going to leave that for a week. I'm going to come back with fresh eyes. That first impressions are so important. That continual first impression, they're like butterfly wings, once touched, forever destroyed. We really do want that first impression, this creative side of our brains to be engaged in how we're reacting to something, because we have to put ourselves in character, in the mind of the audience, even after, we're watching this for the 187th time this week. So I think I don't know if I've called it editor's block, but I've got to a point in the scene I go, well, I'm going to have to think on that. I'm going to have to process that for a couple of days or a week or something like that. So I tend to leave things and then come back to them if there's a problem, but also, specifically if there's, something that there's knock-on effects up and down the timeline with that specific thing as well. If I'm having a problem with that scene and I want to start doing some really serious cutting to save it, that might have implications in scene 12 down there or scene 38 up there. So sometimes you got to go back, and I find you got to leave it a bit, go back, do some other stuff, process it subconsciously, and then come back. That's probably the way I do it.
Okay. Now, do you cut to music or without sound? And how does sound influence your cutting?
I'm all about the music. Actually, I find I have an exhaustive library of music.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you've got that app out there in the States, Shazam.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like my favorite app of all time. Whenever I'm in a coffee shop or even in an elevator, and something's, I was like, oh, that's really nice. That would be really nice for a specific type of scene. Bam, I'll Shazam that. Bang, I'll buy that. Let's listen to that 25, 30 times. Great. And I tend to do that as well with music libraries as well. I get to know them really well so that I have a specific emotional reaction to a set of rushes, a set of footage, and go, okay. First of all, I kind of work out what the scenes is about, and I take a quick look at the footage, and then I do it kind of backward. I'm not comparing myself to Tarantino, but I know that's his process. He finds music and then makes the scene, as opposed to creating the scene and then find the music.
He writes the scene to the music.
Yeah, it's like it's a process. I love doing that. Because music for me is, I did a lot of reality TV shows. I did a lot of stuff like X Factor where nothing happens in the footage. Nothing. It's not emotional. It's nothing. So we have to overcompensate that with highly emotional music. That's the trick we do. If nothing happens, ramp up the music. Let's get Celine Dion in here. Let's absolutely nothing happens. So I did a lot of reality TV as at the same time as my documentary. So music has an unbelievably powerful effect on the audience. It's the one thing that transcends cultures, languages, anything. So I'm all about cutting and finding the perfect track. And I tend to try and find tracks that haven't been used and abused. You get a track that gets really popular, and then you turn on the television, it's on every single show for the next 6 months.
Oh, that Moby album was on everything for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Never listened to Moby ever again after that.
And it was a great album, but I remember it's like every damn thing I watched had the damn Moby on it. It was the most licensed album of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, most licensed album of all time. Every movie, every trailer, they put it in their scores. It was just like, I'm sure Moby's still just counting cash from that damn thing.
Still cashing it in. Well,
He's Moby.
Good luck to him.
God bless. All right, so you've been an editor for a long time, and you sat down one day and looked around and said, I'm not seeing anybody teach the craft. The black arts of film. So you decided to put together something called Inside the Edit, which is how I discovered you originally. I found you online, and I saw this amazing site that was like Inside the Edit, and I'm like, what is this guy from England doing? Let me check this out. I'm like, the site looked gorgeous, which I loved. I loved the grid design of it, and then I started looking at some of the videos you were putting. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's actually teaching people how to edit. Like, I've never seen this in my life. And I've been around a while, and I've taken a lot of courses, and I know a lot of, the lynda.coms and the VFX PhD and all these other places, but there was no one doing it. And it was not just like, oh, we'll throw a couple videos up. You're psychotic. You have like a ton of, and it's insane. So tell us and tell the audience, what is Inside the Edit?
Well, Inside the Edit was, I came up with the idea about 3 or 4 years ago. I stopped editing for about 6 months because I was just a bit tired, burnt out, and I just wanted to stop. So I started training and teaching Final Cut and Avid and things like that at Training Center. And I looked around, I was like, oh, no one's actually teaching the craft. I looked at I sort of widened my gaze and then looked at all the film schools and it's all software related, and they teach you a very basic amount of editing theory. But I was like, no one's teaching, how to assign, different musical instruments to specific characters within, and then physical nuances within a scene. No one's teaching how to construct a really tight sync pool. No one's teaching how to, these literally, I wrote down, it took me a year to write down probably a couple of thousand theories that you need as a pro A-list editor at the top of the game. And I tried to find all of them. I interviewed film school alumni. I went looked at all the broadcasters training centers, stuff like that. And no one's actually teaching the craft. It was all, buttons, pull down menus, and this software and that, and da 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 da. So I basically, I decided to. I thought, oh, this is really interesting, and I basically wrote a very specifically crafted training course, online training course, that consists of about 200 tutorials, some ranging from 5 minutes to like feature length. We've got feature length ones. So it's basically like a 200-part series on editing with...
You understand that this? You understand? You sound crazy.
I told my wife at the time, and she just said, how long is it going to take? And I went, it's just like 6 months, something like that, I think. It took me 3 years. I ended up writing nearly 1 million words.
And you're not making it, but I'm assuming you're working on other things at this time. You're not.
No, I didn't. I didn't. I couldn't. As soon as I wanted to make, in 100 years of editing, I wanted to make the be all and end all. I was like, I could just sling some stuff up there and it'd be great. Or I could make the, start, middle, and end, never have to. This is the quintessential study of editing, which no one has ever done. All these hundreds of different techniques. I mean, we got 25 tutorials alone just on scoring. I mean, no one's ever taught scoring before. You go to lynda.com and you go to all these other websites and it's all techie. And
which goes away, which goes away in a minute, because anything tech will be changed in about a month.
Yeah. Changes. It's we don't have loads of people in the industry. There's loads of people who know the techie side. What we're in short supply of, and what we've always been in short supply of, is people who know how to craft stories.
Craftsmen.
And that's it. That's always going to be. Just because you buy an piece of editing software and you know how to use the timeline and stuff like that and trimming, that does not an editor make. So I basically looked at everyone, all the websites, all the film schools, and thought, this could be really amazing, and spent a long time crafting it. But then what I also did as well was, when you want to learn editing, the one thing, having taught hundreds of people, the one thing that I always was asked at the end was, okay, how do I get a show reel together? How do I cut some scenes? I'm like, well, you can't really, because production companies never ever release rushes, footage, raw footage onto the market, into the open public domain. It doesn't happen. So you're stuck with this next barrier, which is, how do I get footage to practice on? And I'm a director as well. I've directed quite a few documentaries in the UK. So I went out and I shot a 1-hour documentary, like 40 hours of rushes, 35 hours of rushes. So I thought, there's no point in teaching people to editing unless you give them footage to practice on and know all the nuances, all the problems that you get, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff that you get in any one set of footage. They have to practice on that. So I said, right, we're going to give you all these tutorials, and we give you all the footage as well.
How long did it take you to shoot all this?
I shot it. It was an observational documentary, and I shot it over 2 years.
Jesus.
While I was constructing the course. So I was specifically shooting scenes with problems in them as I was writing specific tutorials, drawing on my experience of editing problems I'd had in the past. I was like, okay, I'm going to shoot this scene perfectly, and it's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to shoot this one with loads of flaws. I'm not going to ask that question that I would do to the interviewee. I'm not going to do that. So we're going to have to learn how to fix that in the edit.
Now, Paddy, Paddy, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I consider myself a go-getter. I consider myself a hustler. You're absolutely crazy. I mean, I hearing the story as you're saying it, it's so inspiring. Like, one man, and it's one dude got together. I'm like, I'm gonna just write. Like, think about this. If I would have said this to you before you started, you're gonna sit down and write the end all be all on the craft of editing, over 200 different tutorials, thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of hundreds of hours of of thing plus thousands of hours of work. It's insane. It's like you're literally writing War and Peace, but
Well, actually, I'm currently 400,000 words more than War and Peace. Just want to correct you on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I know it's mental. Everyone says I'm mental. My wife says I'm mental. All my friends say I'm crazy.
But that's what Steve Jobs said. It's the crazy ones that change the world.
Wow.
There you go.
There you go. Don't know if I'm quite at Steve Jobs level yet, but in terms of the craft of editing, yeah, I guess the other thing is the kind of, one of the things about documentary editing is you love constructing and taking apart and reconstructing something that is inherently complex. I think that's an editing thing. Editors truly love taking apart and reconstructing something really, really complex, and the kind of pride and joy that you get out of that artistic, highly complicated and long-winded process. I kind of applied that to Inside the Edit. It was like, it was, I guess, after it all, it was an intellectual challenge. No one's done it before. So I'm going to do that, or I'm going to try and do it. It's
if you would be telling me this before you did it, I'm like, this guy's off his rocker. He'll never get this done. But you've done it, and it's there. It's been around for what, a year now, right?
We're a year old. Yeah, we're already in like over 50 or 60 countries. We've got filmmakers all around the world. We've got directors, producers, camera operators. We've got teenagers. We've got octogenarians. We've got people. We've got major production companies like the BBC and Discovery and Vice Media. News people are using it. Commercials people who want to move from short form into long form. It's really wide. It's turned out to be a great success, and we're signing up film schools as well now. So it's going really well.
Which I find ironic that you're signing up film schools.
It's a bit.
I just find it ironic. That's all.
It's you're kind of going and going, hey, look at this. This is awesome. You should sign up with us, and
we'll teach you.
Don't worry about the other stuff you're teaching.
Exactly.
It's been going phenomenally well. So hopefully it's what fills me with joy is I get emails from so many people. I get emails from people saying, I got one from someone in California the other day saying, I've spent something like £60,000 over many, many years doing a degree, doing courses, doing an MA in editing, and I've learned more in the first 4 chapters of your course than I did in the last 5 years.
That's awesome.
And then I get people who are working in editing houses who are like, I was just doing mood reels, I don't know what you call, just sort of taster tapes and stuff like that. And they were only trusting me with 30-second spots. And now at work, they're calling me the documentary guy, and they're giving me big projects. So it's taken my career on leaps and bounds in what would take, essentially high-end editing takes a decade minimum to learn. But that decade is only through a lot of persistence, it's through a lot of trial and error, and it's through a lot of luck as well. If you go into an edit facility and be a broadcaster and try and be an edit assistant, you're not going to get a pro editor to sit down. Maybe they'll have 10 minutes at some point one week, if you're lucky, and they might tell you something. But then you're not going to have someone who's going to meticulously stand over your shoulder and go through the craft and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So,
what's the process like? I'm a new I went to the Inside the Edit. What's the process of getting in? Is it a core? Like, what kind of coursework is it? How do you sign up? What's the deal? How does it work?
Well, from the very start, we want to be very, very simple. So, it's really easy. All you do is you go in, we do operate a monthly subscription or an annual subscription or a lifetime subscription. If you just want to come and try it out for a month, you can sign up. It's like $50. You can, it's like, 30, 40 pounds, $50. Or you can, buy a year subscription if you really like it, and you get 12 months for the price of 10. And you get on within, enter your details, and you're there within a couple of minutes. Just sent an access code, and immediately you have complete access to all of the Inside the Edit tutorial library. So you start at chapter 1. It's a linear course. Every one. It's like learning a language. You can't just watch them out of sync, because it'd be like
Everything
going
builds,
to
right?
yeah, it'd be like going to lesson 5 speaking Italian. I wouldn't know what they're talking about. So it's a linear course. So you go in and you just start watching the tutorials, and at the end of each tutorial, you're given at least one creative task. So as soon as you sign up, you've got free access to download all of the footage. But also we've partnered up with Universal Production Music, they were always my favorite music library. They've just got an astonishing array of like 500,000 amazing tracks. And so not only do you get 35 hours of rushes, but you also get hundreds of tracks from Universal Music for you to practice scoring with. So you can download them, but you also download the creative task. We've basically tried to replicate everything you get in a Pro Edit suite. So you get PDFs of director's notes about the scene breakdowns, what's in every scene, all the log notes, all the time codes, the transcripts for all the interviews and stuff like that. So you've got everything.
Wow.
So you go through and you start breaking down. You're basically cutting a 1-hour documentary over the course of this, Inside the Edit, however long you choose to take. And we update. There's about 65 tutorials up there already, and we add a new one each week.
Okay.
So.
And your end goal, how many tutorials? Is it going to be an ongoing forever, or are you like? Is there a number like you think?
No, I locked all the scripts. I've written just over 190 scripts, tutorials.
Sorry, every time you say stuff like that, just like you're insane. You're insane.
I think, is that me? Whoever that is, that sounds mental what they're saying. And it is mental. I remember. You should see the script, the pile of scripts. I mean, it looks like 3 telephone directories.
Oh, Jesus.
It's just insane. So yeah, it's but there's other things as well. We're starting to bring out. I've basically come up with all these ideas about training the brain for creativity. We've launched this new feature called Metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically about one of the specific things about editing or being a great editor that can really help you is training your brain on minute differences when you're watching something over and over again. So we'll take a scene and we'll say, watch this scene or watch this 40-second cut of something. Okay, now we've changed one thing. Could be a shot. We could have lengthened it. We could have changed something, a word. We could have changed anything. We won't tell you what it is, but what's the second version? Okay, now what's the difference? So it gets you into this analytical frame of mind of like sitting there and not being sucked into the narrative, looking at it and going, yes, this is really cool, but I've got a job to do here. So we're trying to, work out the muscles in the creative part of the brain. So that we become more analytical as editors, and we do it with timelines as well. We show you a timeline, of a scene, so you're not watching visual stuff. Say, right, look at this timeline. Okay, you got 20 seconds. Like, stop now. Now we've changed 2 things. What are they? Where is there a cut in the music on channel A and 3, A4, 5, and 6, or something like that? Or there's a cutaway put in here, or you swap those 2 shots around. So it's not just watching all the theory and stuff like that in the tutorials. It's also we're expanding and putting in a whole load of new, fresh, original ways of looking at editing, which no one has ever done before. And the feedback we get is tremendous. It's really cool.
What I find fascinating, Paddy, about your whole story is that you've never done anything like this before. You don't have a history of doing stuff like this before. So literally, you just woke up one morning and said, I'm going to write more words than War and Peace and create the definitive course on the craft of editing. And as a filmmaker, as an artist myself, I find that so incredibly inspiring that out of nowhere, you just decided to do it. And I think it's a lesson for a lot of our listeners, of all our listeners, to think about, like, just because you've never done it doesn't mean you can't. And you obviously aren't 22. You're obviously been in the business for a while. So it's
28.
Yeah, 28, obviously 28, 29, 20, 29. But, you have a wealth of your life of knowledge that you've picked up along the way that gave you the ability to do this like right away. So it's not like, I'm just going to wake up at 18 and start teaching the craft of editing. When you're 18, you haven't had time to learn the craft of editing. It's like, I'm going to teach you how to build a table. I've never built a table before, but I've seen it, seen it done. So I think as an artist, even as you get older, at a certain point, it's never, I'm not saying that you're like, it's never too late, you can keep doing it. It's not that. But I just find it inspiring that like all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I'm just going to do this. And it's not something small. You've taken a Herculean, I can't say the word, task. Herculean, thank you, sir. Task upon yourself. And not only have you done it, but you're continuing to do it. So it's not like you're talking about doing it. You've done it. So, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt. I just really, I really find it, I find it so inspiring of what you're doing and that you're doing it well. Anytime someone goes out to achieve something as an artist, because this is an art, what you're doing as well. This is not just, you're not just number ones and zeros, You're an artist creating art to teach other people how to make art, which is, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, a very high level of art, because you're teaching others to be artists, and that takes at a high level, and it does take a lot to do that and to do it in a way, and the way the world has reacted to it. And it's only been around for a year, but you've got major corporations who see value in what you're doing, and you're obviously your subscription base and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to say that because it was just really, I've heard the story before. We've talked on the phone before, but this is the first time I've kind of heard the meat and potatoes of it. And I'm like, God, seriously, man. Seriously, congratulations.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, it means a lot to me. I mean, we're all artists, and I think one of the driving forces around art, whether it doesn't matter what you're doing, is you want to be challenged all the time. And that for me was this. I just thought, hold on a minute, I could really help people's careers in an art form, a particular art form, which has not really been covered because no one sat down and deconstructed it. And I just thought, and it is that idea of challenging yourself, and that's why we come to the artistic process. And we don't go and work in banks or wherever like that. We want to strive to create the best possible thing that we can create. It is that challenge, and that's the thing that kept me up. That drive until 3-4 in the morning, and doing all the crazy hours that I had to do inside the edit. But just getting the feedback and getting all these wonderful, emails and LinkedIn messages from people saying, "Oh, you've changed my life. You've inspired me to go out," and then they send me their films and stuff like that. I'm like, this is awesome. And they send me their films at the start, and they're like, oh God, that's not well edited. And then you see the progress, and you're like, that just fills you with joy as someone who's not. I never grew up as a teacher or anything like that. I didn't start as a teacher. I just did a bit of teaching, a few years ago, after doing 15, 16 years of editing. So it fills my heart with joy, seeing people progress and seeing people, really, really get to their artistic, helping them, to their artistic capabilities. Can I teach you to be a Renoir or a Picasso? No, I can't do that. So I'm just igniting a flame that is in you already, and hopefully helping you for you to go off and be that Renoir, or go off and be that Picasso. But that's up to you. I can point you on the path. That's what I think. But for me, it's as an artist and making that daily challenge. Because it is a daily challenge. You wake up in the morning, and go, oh God, what have I got to do today? Oh, that's really complicated, and just pushing through that. I love that feeling. I mean, that's what a lot of editing is like, the complexity of that art form. So I love it. I really do love it. And it was always really important to me that this looked exceptionally good. I mean, my target audience is a bunch of, like me, a filmmaker, a lover of film, a cinephile, documentary makers, all the way around the world. It has to look beautiful. And I looked at everyone else's tutorials, and they're like, oh God, this looks like corporate kind of, it's like
Excel.
you're selling washing machines or something. It's like, no, this has to be a cinematic experience, and that's the way we designed it, and that's the way I wrote it, and that's the way, because each one of the tutorials is cut like a documentary with music and high-end graphics, explaining everything. So it's really important being, you've got to be a perfectionist as an editor, and I took all that perfectionism, even though I had to stay up till 3-4 in the morning sometimes perfecting it, the tiniest detail. It has to be perfect, and that's what filmmaking's about.
You've basically aged about 20 years in the last 3.
I worked out actually that I don't know what the average working week is.
Oh, you did the numbers.
I did the math. In the 3 years I've worked on Inside Edit, if you take the average working week as 40 hours, I've worked 9.5 years in 3 years. So yeah, I was doing like 110-hour weeks for like a year and a half. It was just insane.
That's what I find fascinating, that you don't have a history of being crazy. So that's what I find fascinating about your story. It's like all of a sudden you just turned crazy and decided, I'm going to do this.
I just saw it. I was just like, this could be amazing.
This is it. This is your iPhone. This is your
exactly.
Yeah. This is the thing that you're like, this is where I'm going to put my stamp on the world. You're going to put a ding in the universe, at least the editing universe.
The ding in the editing universe. Great. I have that on my gravestone. Just as he finished the last tutorial. Oh, dead.
Yeah, just like
ding in the editing
but he
universe.
died on his mouse.
He died on his Avid keyboard.
Yes. The way a good editor should.
Yeah. Goes down with his ship.
So I have a few more questions for you, sir.
Yeah.
What is your funniest editing story? Something that happened in the room, something you heard from somebody else that you can't say their names, something funny that people were like, that didn't happen, or really did that happen?
Wow. I mean, it's hard to do that without getting anyone or myself into trouble. Like most editors.
Well, just a fun one. Just a fun one. It doesn't have to be like a heavily political one. Just something funny that happened.
I tell you what, I was actually round at a friend of mine's for dinner the other day, a director I worked with several years ago. I think it was one of the last jobs I actually did before Inside the Edit. Oh, I shouldn't have said that actually, because then some people can look that up on IMDb and work out which one it was, and then work out the production company and the person I'm just about to talk about.
Well, you just gave them the exact roadmap to do so.
Well, there's a lot of intelligent people out there. No, it was one of the last ones I was on. But no, we were working on this rather large budget co-production between British and American television, and there was supposed to be a sort of legendary exec producer who's won loads of awards and stuff like that, and he's coming in for the first viewing of the rough cut. I think we were about 3 or 4 weeks in, something like that. It was a long one. It was like a 12-weeker. I think it was a feature length. Was it feature length or 60 minute? I can't remember. When you go, when the exec producer comes in, it's quite a moment. They're in charge of everything, and they report to the channel, and
in television, so everybody knows that in television, the exec producer is the power, as opposed to on a film set, the director many times is the guy is the top cheese, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. The exec is you don't want to mess around with the exec. They have the power of life and death in your career, because it's a small world of exec producers. But this guy came in, and we'd heard that he was a legendary this, that, and the other documentary maker, and he sat down and he watched the cut, and he was like, "Oh, marvelous, marvelous, marvelous!" And then he proceeded to give us what I think is the most bizarre set of feedback notes I've ever experienced. He was just talking gibberish. I mean, literally gibberish. He was like, ask yourselves a question. What does the voiceover say about itself? I was looking at the director going, is it me or is this guy nuts? And he proceeded to give us like 30 or 40 notes that were just insane.
Right.
And he sort of got up and left and went, "Thank you, it's wonderful," but they were just gibberish.
All right.
And then he walked out, and it's a bit of a sort of, because there was some less senior producers in there afterwards, after he come in and gone and that. I just sort of looked over to the director. I said, I looked down at the notes. I went, "Is it me, or was that just a load of rubbish?" I mean, I didn't understand a thing that he said. How are we going to change this film? What are his notes? We got a viewing with the channel in 10 days. How are we going to do this? It was utter gibberish. And this guy was supposed to be like one of the legends of British television.
All right.
So I was flabbergasted. So
So what did they say?
What are the series producers? They were just as the other producers were just as flabbergasted. They were like, I have no idea what that was. Was that guy smoking crack before he came in here? I mean, it was just utter gibberish. So yeah, we just sort of cut it the way we wanted to cut it, and then sent it off to the channel.
And what happened at the end? Did everything go all right, I guess?
Well, that was a whole other different story. Actually, they loved it. I said, "This is brilliant,"
but the exec producer didn't.
And then they came back and went, "Actually," so we were like, "Oh, great, we're going to finish on time, and we can go home at 7:00." And then they came back. A lot of things happened in terms of like someone else senior ends up watching it, and then they turn around and go, "Oh, actually, no, we want to change all of this. We want to completely restructure the whole thing, and you got 3 days to do it before transmission." So yeah,
of course,
good luck.
Of course, that's the way.
Yeah, no, that was just
bizarre.
I've never heard anything like that. It was just. I actually wrote down some of these things. I can't remember a lot of them, but they were gibberish, utter rubbish.
You should put them in the course somewhere.
You know what? It's funny you say that. I did actually write a one specific tutorial about taking feedback. And I said, sometimes the feedback will be crazy. So don't expect, how do you know what notes to reply to and change in the edit, and what just insane? Because you do get that. You get execs and series producers who come in, or senior producers come in. They've been up for 5 days and they've had 5 liters of coffee, and they don't really know what they're talking about. And they watch something, and they give you a load of notes, and you're like, yeah, 3/4 of these are just
rubbish.
So how are you going to reply to that? So yeah, I did actually build in some of those responses. I said I worked on a film once where I got these type of notes. And yeah, they were just rubbish. So it does happen.
No, I'll tell you one of the funny stories I did or I heard of. I was early in my editing career, and I was again down in Miami, and we're doing, I think it was commercials, if I'm not mistaken. I was like assistant editing on this, and this editor was this old editor who had just been around forever, and he had, he's like, this nonlinear thing is never gonna, so that kind of dude. He was working online. I was in a CMX 3600 at the time.
Oh, yeah.
But this battle axe of a producer shows up, and everybody was like, "Oh, this lady is just horrible. She's just gonna," and the editor, and as you get older, you just don't care as much. And it's true. You just don't care as much as you get older. So he really didn't care. So she comes in, and he told me, he goes, "Watch this." So she comes in, is like, and I'm like, I'm sitting there with popcorn in my hand waiting to see the show. So the lady comes in, she's like, "I need this," and he's like, "Okay, sure, no problem. He goes, "But the problem is with the footage." She's like, "What's the problem? What's the problem?" She's like, "Well, it's the time code. It's it's not the best kind of time code that we can use." "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, there's time code, and then there's double down time code. Double down time code is really, really accurate. While this other time code's not as accurate, it's hard to sync the reels." She's like, "Really? You need double time down code?" Like, "Yes, you need double down time code if you want to. So when you go out tomorrow to the set, make sure everybody knows that you need double down time code." She's like, all right.
That's cruel.
And she went out to the set, and she was just yelling at the top of her lungs to people, "What is this crap? This show's not being shot on double down time code. This is horrible." And the sound guy's like, "What the hell is this?" And then I was on set. Doing stuff, and the camera guy, I'm like, Yeah, Larry sent this over. She's like, and everybody was like, everyone just pissed themselves. They're like, oh, Larry. And then everybody was like, yes, of course, we'll do double time atomic code for you.
Yeah. Don't worry, we got it. We
got this covered. We're but she's like, all right, good. But it was just the best to see.
Sweet revenge.
Oh, it's just brilliant. I always ask you, do you, as an editor, and I know this might be controversial to answer, you don't have to answer this. Do you sometimes leave a red herring in the edit for the producer, director, or the powers that be to have something to change?
Oh, the old classic. I was told that when I was a teenager.
Right.
If you get a problematic, hands-on, really pain in the butt,
creative or whatever,
yeah, just always give them something. I was always told about 2/3 of the way through the scene, because they'll start watching the scene, and then what will happen? Sorry, always about 1/3 of the way through the scene. So they'll start watching the scene. So somewhere near the front third, make a really bad deliberate mistake. And so then they'll immediately take their head away from the screen, scribble for 10 minutes, like, and they'll miss the rest of the scene.
All right.
They come back and they'll go, yeah, stop. They go, right, well, it's good apart from this. You didn't do blah, 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 blah. And then you go, oh, God, sorry about that. I'll change that, yeah. Was the rest of the scene all right? Yeah, it's fine, no worries. So you can get in all your ideas if you just do one colossal, so that they can, you can see it.
And it can't
really
be
obvious.
And it can't be a mistake that just makes you look incompetent, but it has to be. It's like that fine line. If it's something like completely incompetent, then why are we hiring this editor? But it has to be has to be that balance of something for them to say. I usually either do audio dropouts, I'll do a double frame in the edit,
Nice.
or so, like little things here and there.
Yeah, classic. Oh, brilliant, fantastic. They all work, don't they? They're brilliant. They just,
It's old tricks.
Get them to shut the hell up and get all your changes and what you want under the radar, and they don't even realize it.
It's all.
I hope there's no senior producers.
No, only filmmakers listen to our show, sir.
Brilliant.
If I finally get the executives and senior producers listening to the show, then I've taken the show to a new level. And by the way, if there are any senior producers or executives listening to the show, email me at, and you can email Paddy at doubledowntimecode.com. All right. So what advice do you have for young editors just starting out in the business?
I mean, you just got to keep on editing. I know it's a crazy thing, but you have to get those hours up in the course in the course of your career. You got to get into the thousands. Well,
as they say, you need 10,000 hours to master something.
Yeah, the whole Malcolm Gladwell. I remember reading a refutation to that. It's like apparently more than 10,000 hours.
Right.
So 10,000 hours is not that much. I think it's about 5 years of 40, 50 hours a week. You could do a lot more, but I would say watch as many films as you can. Watch as many genres. Don't just stick to the genres that you like. Start getting as much music under your belt, because the one thing, if editing's the most nebulous art form in the moving image medium, scoring is probably the most nebulous art form in editing, and there's that really sets you apart.
When you say scoring, you mean like because I know here
finding music for the scene.
Exactly.
Not scoring as in writing the music. Scoring as in going and finding the perfect piece of music for that particular scene. So yeah, that's another big one. But just watch as many things as you can. Keep on cutting as much as possible. But I'm obviously going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
Come and join Inside the Edit. It is the one and only major league editing tool that's out there. You could go to 3 years of film school. You could then make tea in a production company for another 2 years. You won't get anywhere near what we teach over at Inside the Edit.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. So we could do the hard sell. What's the website?
InsideTheEdit.com.
All right, there it is. And two more questions, and I ask all my guests this. What are your top 3 films of all time?
Oh, wow.
Like I always say, whatever comes to your mind right now. We won't hold you to this forever, but 3 films that really, moved you in some way or are considered in your top 3. No, not in order, just any top 3.
I mean, I'm a bit high fidelity here. I've got subgenres within. I've got top 5s within specific genres. Top 5 comedies. Top 5 documentaries. Top 5 war documentaries.
Sure,
top 5,
sure.
I don't know. If we're just going to go plain drama, not in any order, I'd say one of the films that really influenced me. I saw it when I was 9 when it came out in the cinema, and I was like, "Oh, I want to be in films. This is a beautiful film." Is Amadeus.
Oh God, such a brilliant movie.
I've seen that film over 200 times.
Such a brilliant movie, and a lot of people, a lot of this generation don't know about Amadeus. It's not one of those films that is like taught in all the film schools as much as they should be.
It's genius.
It's
absolute
brilliant,
genius.
Brilliant film.
I'd say films that really influenced me. I mean, you can't have lived through the 80s as a teenager and not mention Goodfellas, even though it was 1991. I think
90.
Goodfellas.
It was 1990. Yeah.
90. Yeah. I mean, that was just genius, absolute genius. I'd say, I mean, I'm actually attracted to a lot of films. I mean, I love action movies. I love them all. I don't have a genre. I'll watch anything. I grew up on watching European art house movies and Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Who obviously is the greatest actor of all time. We all know that.
The greatest actor. I don't know why he's not, been nominated for.
Actually, JVCD?
Yeah,
that was actually really brilliant.
That movie. That was brilliant.
That was a brilliant
Good.
performance by him. I was blown away that monologue he did. I was like, holy cow, he can act. Holy cow,
he can act, and it's so honest. And I was like, wow, man. After you've watched Death Warrant and Bloodsport.
Well, Bloodsport. I mean, Bloodsport is the greatest. One of the greatest action movies of all time. Let's throw it out there.
We're showing our age now, mate. We're showing our age. But no, I actually like films that are based on plays. So I do like the one man, two character films like Sleuth, 60s Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier, Glengarry Glen Ross, David Mamet, James Foley directed that genius movie. I mean, I think that's got to be the greatest cast of all time.
One of them, yeah.
It's Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon,
Kevin Spacey, Alec Baldwin, Ed Harris,
Jonathan Pryce. I mean,
it was obscene.
Yeah, I think Al Pacino, didn't he say this is the greatest cast I've ever worked with?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, yeah. And he was in The Godfather.
He was in The Godfather. There you go. But yeah, no, I love that kind of quick, Mamet's so good for that. I love that, that Mamet style, that Mamet talk, as they call it.
Right.
Bam, 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 bam. I love that kind of quick, fast play. It's a play as a film. So yeah, big fan. Those are the films that, I mean,
you can go on forever. I got you.
Can't we all? We're all film buffs.
And last question, since this is a very editing focused show, what is the best edited sequence in the last 25 years?
Wow.
I know you're talking about the Jason Bourne stuff.
Difficult questions here. Oh, wow.
Something that you saw that was just like, I mean, obviously the Jason Bourne stuff was insane, but
I mean, it's got to be I mean, it's got to be. I think it's got to be the either one of the two, the second or the third Bourne movies. The Bourne Ultimatum, that was the third one, and the Bourne Supremacy. I was just literally blown away at the pace, the timing, the daring. I can't think of anything. I mean, there's obviously a ton of amazing. Even this year, Whiplash, Tom Cross edited that. Yeah. So that was just, it's just phenomenal editing. But in terms of pushing the boat out there, but then you look through the history, that is a lot of that kind of, you look at the way Jaws is cut, look at the way Bonnie and Clyde is cut. That was a massive, you look at all the cutting techniques that are used now. A lot of them stemmed from, films like Bonnie and Clyde, but I know that's more than 25 years ago. But there's a history of it, and there's really daring, creative editing artists out there pushing the boundaries. It's so lovely and refreshing to see. But for me, I'd have to say it was just a giant. I was just blown away watching the second and third Bourne movies. They were just exceptionally edited.
Those action sequences are insane. They're just insane. The way they cut, and it's like I was just like pop, 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 pop. I was like, even my wife, who's not in the business, she was like, "That was edited amazing."
Yeah.
So when you have someone who's not in the business go, "That was really good editing," it says something.
Well, that's the thing. It's like no one's supposed to recognize what we do. If people start recognizing what we do, we haven't done our job correctly. We're supposed to be the invisible eye, as it were. And if you sit there and go, "Wow, bang," you're really affected by the editing and. I had a director friend of mine though who didn't like them. He was a commercials director. And he said Paul Greengrass has just shot a 3-hour movie and cut it down to an hour and a half, like on steroids. That's not editing. That's not structure. And we didn't agree. This is like an exceptional jump forward in the craft.
There's those movies that do like I think when Pulp Fiction came out, it kind of pushed.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, pushed the whole medium forward. When Matrix came out, on the action and visual effects side, Star Wars, obviously. There are those movies, but in the genre of editing, there are Bonnie and Clyde.
Genius. That end scene when they get shot.
The Godfather was brilliantly cut as well. The pacing in that, but that's But anyway, so, Paddy, thank you so much for being on the show. I think you've given
absolute pleasure.
You've given our audience a ton of great information. This is almost a mini masterclass in in editing. So I would have killed to have this course when I was. I had to draw. I'm gonna do the whole. I walked uphill to school in snow barefoot story, but.
I hear the violins coming.
You can hear the violins, right? But you know what? I didn't have no fancy laptops with Final Cut on them. We did it the old-fashioned way. We did it the old-fashioned way. I drove an hour. I woke up at 4 a.m. Woke up to get into the studio early.
Crawled there on my knees.
But that's what I did to learn the Avid for like the year that I sat, doing dubs in the other room as a dubbing commercial reels for other directors. I sat and I went and you know what? I think a lot of that means something. Like when you have to struggle a little bit to get that, and like nowadays you just I'll just get a laptop and I'll get Final Cut and I'll learn it. But
struggling's good. It centers your it gives you the driving force. It's like this isn't easy. No, becoming really really good at something. Mm-hmm. There's very few geniuses that are born every generation. In our generation, it was Tarantino. We all saw Pulp Fiction. Was like, oh yeah, this guy's a genius.
Yeah.
But he did a lot of work getting up to that point. Yeah. But it's becoming a true artist takes an enormous amount of work and fire and pushing through when you just like, oh, I can't go on. I can't have another cup of coffee to keep me going at 3 a.m. because I know this has got to be done at 7. It's just like it's struggle's good.
But talent is not enough. Talent is never enough.
Talent's 5%.
Yep.
95% is just grit and determination, and that's what There's a thing we say in certainly in television. It's like the reason we pay you nothing and get you to do insane hours and crazy requests in those first few years of your career is because we want to sort the wheat from the chaff. Mm-hmm. We want to see how committed you are. I certainly had that. You get. People I've seen now, they want to go home at 6 o'clock or go down a bar or go out partying and stuff like that. It's like you're not going to be, after a period of years, 1-2 years in a production company or broadcast, they sort through that stuff, and you're like, these are the people who are truly committed, because if you want to make money, you don't go into filmmaking. Very few people make, you go in because you're a passionate artist, mm-hmm. and you have to display that passion, because unfortunately, there's 100 people standing behind you, waiting to do, or 1,000 people, 10,000 people in any one city in the world, waiting to do exactly the same. So that's the only real advice I would give. Just getting that real commitment and drive to just go through and do what no one else will.
And that's and here in LA, you can only imagine how many people are in line waiting.
Oh yeah, I've worked a bit in LA, and you just I remember actually. I was thinking. I remember the first time I came to LA in the 90s, and I was like, "This is just everything is movies about this town."
Yep.
Everyone's.
Yeah.
And I remember walking down Third Street Promenade in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
There was these two homeless guys, and they were drinking booze, and they were, really dirty. I felt quite sorry for them, and they were in rags and stuff like that. And I remember just catching their conversation. As I walked down, and one guy was saying to the other one, he was saying, "Yeah, my agent's got. He's trying to get Burt Lancaster interested. I think he's going to sign." And I was like, "I'm pretty sure Burt Lancaster's dead." But the homeless guys were talking about. Everyone's got a script in their back pocket, and even the homeless guys were like, "Bang!"
It's
everyone.
Look, I got out here 8 years ago, and when I got out here, I just couldn't believe it. It was just like the most amazing place in the world, like for a film. Like, oh my God, everything's movies. Yeah,
it's like a mecca. It's the holy grail. I love going to LA, and I just spend my whole time going to the movies there. I just loved it.
Movies here are fun to watch because actually their screens here are done right, and you can go to the ArcLight, and they actually will throw you out if you have a phone on.
But they're built for movie theaters in London. It's terrible because all our movie theaters are they're all Victorian, music hall. So the acoustics are terrible. I remember going to see Mission Impossible 3 at our largest cinema here, and I couldn't understand anything what anyone was saying because it's an old music hall. So you go to movies in the States, especially in LA or New York or any of the big cities, and they're like, it's such a beautiful experience. It's a movie house built for watching movies. So I would go crazy on it. I'd be watching 3-4 movies a day, just touring from
just hopping. Yeah, they'll throw you out. They'll throw you out, is what you're saying.
Movie nerd.
Thank you again so much for being on the show. We really, really appreciate it. And all the golden nuggets that you tossed out there, man.
Thanks, and good luck. Take care.
I had an absolute blast talking to Paddy. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, it's like two old war dogs sitting down and talking shop, and bitching and complaining about I wish this would have happened, all the clients and blah blah blah. So it was so much fun listening to his stories and swapping stories and things like that. And I hope you guys got something out of that because if I was starting out as an editor, a lot of the stuff that we talked about really would be beneficial if you're looking towards trying to get an editing career or trying to get a job as an editor. But even for filmmakers, like the directors and stuff, I mean, anybody who's a filmmaker should go to InsideTheEdit.com and just go and start learning from Paddy's course. It is remarkable and so amazing what he's been able to put together. So it's a film school. It's a film. They're going to teach you things there that you will never teach in film school. I mean, I know right now that a lot of film schools are talking to him about putting his course in their schools because they have nothing like it. There is just nothing like it on the marketplace. So as promised, I have a discount code for Inside the Edit. You have to email ifhdiscount@insidetheedit.com. That's ifhdiscount@insidetheedit.com. I'll put the email in the show notes as well. But you email them, tell them that you're an Indie Film Hustle. Well, they'll already know you're an Indie Film Hustle tribe member, and they'll send you a discount code, and you'll get 10% off for Inside the Edit. So well worth it, guys. So definitely head over there and start learning because there's a lot of stuff to learn. Also, don't forget to go to indiefilmhustle.com/iTunes and leave us an honest review of our podcast. It really helps us out on the rank in iTunes and helping spread the word of the Indie Film Hustle tribe and get more people in our tribe. So thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.